Hey everyone, Walter Crosby with Helix Sales Development, your host of Sales and Cigars. My guest today is Brian Skillen. He helped me publish my book, Scale Your Sales, and I had him on as a guest because he's an interesting guy. He's got a great backstory. He tells a wonderful story about how he got to being a publisher and being a writer with all the challenges that he had. But he adds an element to this episode about how a visionary can develop a team and what's important to finding somebody that aligns with your vision. And he talks a little bit about how he does it and the tools that he uses. So go grab a cigar, grab a cocktail, strap in for another educational episode of Sales and Cigars. Thanks. So Brian, welcome to the program. I appreciate you taking a couple minutes to jump on with us.
Hey, Walter, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here with you today.
I've been kind of looking forward to this conversation because we've done some work together, and I don't have a lot of guests on who I've been partnered with on some projects, and you helped me with a exciting project, and we'll get to that in a second. But I like to start off with, it helps the audience understand what's important to the guest. Is there a book you gift or a book that you read repeatedly that's part of your repertoire?
Yeah, absolutely. So, some of my favorite books are by Russell Brunson. We have .com Secrets, Expert Secrets, and Traffic Secrets. Hands down, that is the book that I recommend to most people, or that's the trilogy I recommend to most people. I buy them from my employees so that they can read the books and we can all be on the same page together. And Walter, before I go anywhere else, I see you keep smoking. What are you smoking today?
Oh, I appreciate that. It's Olivia Series G, box press. I was getting ready for this, and I was looking in my humidor, and I found the box in the back and the bottom. I'm like, oh, I haven't even opened this box yet. So kind of
Wow.
trying a new cigar. So,
That's awesome. I love it. Looks great. Looks like really good.
well, I every once in a while I'll get a bad cigar, but even a bad cigar doesn't suck in my world. Um, so the Brunson trilogy, um, in your funnel hacker, right? Is that the right
Yeah,
term?
that's correct. Yeah, absolutely.
Um, like, help me understand, like, why, how did that become part of your journey? Maybe we talk a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey, but
Yeah.
how did that funnel hacking stuff get into your life?
Well, I kept learning. So I'll get more into my story later, but that particular part, I kept learning that all roads kept leading back to Russell, which is really interesting. Like people, everybody from Tony Robbins to Dean Graziosi to like all these people, they were all running funnels, sales funnels, and they were using Russell's system. And so I kept learning that everything would kept going back to Russell Brunson in this way. And so it was like, oh, okay. And then I started reading him and I was like, this makes so much sense. And so as I was going, it just really gave me a firm understanding of concepts that were only half formed in my mind. It made it much better for me to get in there and really understand things at a very simple level, right down to like he has doodles inside of his books. And I think being able to see it in picture form really helps too. So it's really very accessible. He takes these high concepts and makes them very accessible for everybody.
And when you say the doodles and the little drawings, but he has a piece of software that he bought that called Doodles. Is that he
Oh
actually
no,
used?
no, no. Yeah, like so inside each of his books, he has these little drawings inside his books. And when he does presentations, he says, "Oh, I'm just going to doodle on my board over here," and he draws some pictures and things like that. So he puts pictures in there. So it's not an actual software. His software is ClickFunnels, and it's one of the first funnel softwares, or at least the longest lasting funnel software that's been on the market, essentially.
Yeah, he's had a little bit of success.
Yeah, just a little bit, to the billions, dude, probably at this point.
Well, when you're building a museum for books on your property, just because you're so intrigued with them, he's no longer motivated by money. He's motivated by learning
Legacy.
things and creating legacies and helping people. So, um, it I have a love-hate relationship with ClickFunnels. I use it. Our mutual friend Nate helps me with
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
Um, but some of the things that if I purchase something from Russell, which is often,
Mhm.
um, the amount of emails I get
Yeah.
from him,
Totally.
it's so, um, it's like my inbox is inundated.
Well,
And I
Walter, I think what we should do is we take all the emails from Russell, put them into a book, and send it to him as a gift.
that would be a very thick book.
It would be a very thick book. It'd be like Encyclopedia Britannica.
So that takes us back to, it's a nice segue, Brian. It takes us back to creating a book, and that's not a bad idea. But let's talk a little bit about your journey because you helped
Yeah,
me.
sure.
I'm going to show this little book here. You helped me
Gorgeous.
get this off the ground
Hmm.
and and make it a, well, you tell the story.
Yeah.
Amazon bestseller a
Yes, you
couple
became
of
a
years ago.
number one Amazon bestseller for Scale Your Sales, which is super awesome. And I loved it. You had a great launch. And the cool thing about books is they make one of the best lead magnets for your business. That was the other thing I noticed, right? Everybody has books: Tony Robbins, Dean Graziosi, Russell Brunson. And the reason why is because with a webinar or something like that, you're only in somebody's mind for an hour, right? You're only there for an hour. When they're reading your book, you hear their voice going through there, and then you also are there for more time. I'm a kind of a slow reader, so believe it or not, I own a publishing company. I'm a slow reader. I get other people to read it for me, but it's like um, your voice gets to be in somebody's head for a week, a day, or whatever. So you have more exposure to that, and obviously the goal of sales is to get people to know, like, and trust you. And what better way to get somebody to know, like, and trust you than being a voice inside their head, especially if you're providing value. And if you think about it like this, um, when was the last time you recommended a course to somebody versus the last time you recommended a book to somebody? I would
Well,
wager 10 to 1 that you recommended a book more recently than you recommended a course. And so the pass through is amazing.
what's interesting, I want to go back to something you said, but
Mhm.
you're right. I start off always asking somebody what book they recommend or gift because
Exactly.
it really helps the audience understand how somebody thinks,
Hmm.
um, what's important to them, what they're thinking about, what they're considering. Um, and I rarely recommend a course,
Right.
but I have those that I take, and that's interesting. But last night I was sitting with a small group of people at a networking function,
Hmm.
and I had given the book to one of my colleagues a few weeks ago, and he read it, um, and he said, and I think this is a compliment, but it speaks to your point. He goes, "When I was reading it, I could hear your voice," and
Totally.
he knows me,
Hmm.
and he's like, you were in the book. I could hear you saying the things that you wrote, which I took as a compliment, and I think he meant it as a compliment because sometimes I'm a little direct,
Yeah.
and I'm not for everybody.
Yeah.
I have a certain style, um, and that came through in the writing. So I think that's one way that people can decide if your book is really authentic.
Yeah, you're already filtering out people to begin with, right? So, and think about this, you're getting paid to advertise. So instead of you paying, right? So if somebody buys your book, they're actually buying their book to listen to your advertisement as you're going through there. Not that your book is just an advertisement. Obviously, you got to present value, but like within that value, if you shape a book properly, it can lead to other things like downloads, resources, all these other things, and then they become a part of your ecosystem because then you've captured their email and you can market to them, which is why I think every business person should have a book, like no matter what business you're in, because it is just the best lead magnet essentially coming into it.
It's a lead magnet digitally, right?
Mhm.
People can go and find it and get it on Amazon or Barnes and Noble or wherever. But there's been a couple occasions since we got this on the street where I'm
Mhm.
sitting with somebody who says, like, what do you do? How do you do it? And the what do you do is easy. The how do you do it is a little bit more complicated. But when
Yeah,
you hand them the book and
totally.
say, this is a pretty easy read, you can knock it off in the length of the time it takes you to read a cigar or smoke a cigar. You can knock through this book. Um, it it helps you understand how I think and then how I go about solving problems. And that the problem isn't necessarily what you think it is. That's all in the book. And every time I've done that, um, with one exception, just a grumpy old dude. But everybody else is like, oh, a book, right?
Yep.
And they flip through and they all look at the chapter headings,
Hmm.
they try to understand what it's about, and they're like, can I get another one so I can give it to somebody?
Awesome.
Thanks for watching another episode of Sales and Cigars. I'm looking for guests. I'm looking for really good guests who have an interesting story to tell, their entrepreneurial journey. They want to talk about something that's going great in their organization. I'm really interested in speaking to business owners and CEOs. The other type of guest I'm looking for is somebody who's got a passion for cigars, and we can do a short episode about a pairing, about a new cigar they discovered, about something around their passion of cigars. So if one of those things fits you, or you know somebody, or want to make a recommendation, shoot me an email, ping me on LinkedIn. I'd love to get some guests from the audience. Appreciate it. Thanks.
I think you just invented something, Walter. The book as a business card. I've never thought about that before. I think you invented the book as the business card.
Well, like this guy asked for my card, and I'm like, you know what? I don't have a card, and I had 20 of them in my bag.
Yeah,
But I said, I got this, and it was all my info is in there. They can
that's
reach me
so
there.
cool. I
There's
love it.
resources. It's a little bulkier to pull out of your pocket, but you know, it's a it is what it is. So we talked about my book, and you helped me get it there. And I recommend anybody that is trying to get a book off the ground, or get it out of their head onto paper, to reach out to you. But
Thank you.
let's talk about, like, how'd you get here?
Yeah. So I have a pretty funny story. So I always say God has a sense of humor. He made me dyslexic and I became a writer. He made me fat and I became a dancer. Right. So you haven't heard this part of my story before, but before publishing, I actually was a world famous dancer. I traveled the world teaching dance and performing, taught in over 32 countries around the world. Performed on Lincoln Center, a lot of big stages. So that was like my
What kind of
pre-pub.
deal?
Yeah, I also did film too. I did a lot of things. I've done a lot of things in my short life so far. But
But
I was on
what kind of dance, Brian? I mean,
what's that?
what is it?
Oh, I would do like swing dancing. So like swing and
Oh
blues
shit!
dancing. So literally my job for years was throwing women in the air, which was amazing. You wouldn't believe it looking at me now, but like back then that was what I would do, which is pretty
So
fun.
there's a scene from John Favreau movie. Um, Shit, the name of the movie, Swingers,
Yeah,
right?
swingers. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I
And
would do. So
Big
like
Bad Voodoo Daddy was playing they were doing swing dancing,
yeah.
and all wearing zoot suits and stuff.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I love that movie. That was one of my favorites. That and Swing Kids. That inspired me to start dancing. But that's a whole other story. Like, and that was an amazing career. Like I took a form of dance and popularized it around the world. So I would teach local girls how to teach or women how to teach this particular dance, give them music. They would build communities, and those communities supported me for like 20 years. Like all of so it got to the point where I'd be like, oh, I want to go to Europe. So I just put up a post saying, hey, I want to come to Europe. And then who wants me for a workshop? And within an hour, I would have like a 3, 4, 5 week trip, all booked, planned, paid for, whatever, going through Europe. It was great until COVID shut us down.
Yeah.
And I'll get to that in a second. So on one of these dance tours, I was on something called the Camino de Santiago, which is this ancient pilgrimage that stretches across Spain. And I got to this place called the Arc of San Antonio, which is this giant arc just jutting into the air. And I was like, this looks like something out of Game of Thrones or Lord of Rings. And just past there was the hilled city of Casa Jerez, which is, a giant hill with a castle on top. And once again, I was very intrigued. And I checked into the albergue, which is like the pilgrim shelter. And the seal for the city, so you have these pilgrim passports and they stamp them. It had 5 Templar crosses on it. And I was like, oh, the Knights Templar. And the guy's like, what do you know about the Knights Templar? I said, I don't know. What do you know about the Knights Templar? And we got in this great conversation about the history of the Templars on the Camino in that region. And as we were finishing up our conversation, he said, look for the clues the Templars left behind. And with that, I was hooked. The next morning, I woke up. I took my dance shoes out of my bag. Remember, I was on tour. So I took my dance shoes out of my bag. I left them outside of a secondhand store that was closed. And I said to God in the universe, I said, I'll trade these in for a story. And every day after that, as I'd walk in the morning under the stars, this book started to play like a movie in my head. The people I met became characters, the things I saw interwove into the narrative. And there's all this weird Templar stuff that kept coming up. And by the end of the 30-day hike across Spain, I had a whole book dictated. Now, there was one only problem. I got back home and I grew up with dyslexia in the third grade reading and spelling level. So I never thought I would write a book. But I think if you have a big enough why, you can do anyhow, right? The how, if you have that why, you can just go through. So my why was to inspire 1 million people to go to the Camino. And my how was by committing 2,000 words a day, no matter what. So I sat down, I started writing 2,000 words a day, no matter what. And it was painful in the beginning. Like it took me like 8 hours to get through that first one. But just like a muscle, as I kept writing, I got faster and faster and faster. And thank God for Grammarly and everything. I still did, and I had to learn about punctuation, had no idea where a comma went, like all this other stuff. I finished the book. I thought it was the best thing ever. I brought it to my girlfriend at my time, the girl I just had a couple dates with at the time. I was like, I'm going to impress her with this book, And so I gave it to her. She read it and she's like, I need some work. And my little heart broke. I was like, oh no. But I'm so happy she was honest with me, because that forced us to learn everything we could about writing and like all the skills that I'm using today to help other people I learned in that time period. And so fast forward, I sent out 50 query letters to agents, got back 2 rejection letters, 48 other agents didn't even bother to write back to me. And then COVID happened. Right. And so I had this, thriving dance business where I'm traveling 6 to 9 months out of the year, every week, different country, different city, only working 2 days a week, making, good money, whatnot. And then that's all gone. But I have this book. Right. And so what I decided to do is I decided to do a Kickstarter book launch for it. And so we put our book up on Kickstarter, and with 30 days, we raised over $10,000 for my debut novel. Now, just to give you an idea, the average self-published book only sells 250 copies in a lifetime. So that's kind of like just industry standard. And actually, published books, it's like with traditional publishers, it's somewhere between 500 up to 2,000, depending on how much money they put into it. So like the margin is there. But anyways, we had done that before we even launched our book, which was like super cool. Then we launched, we became Amazon bestseller in several different categories. And all these people kept asking, how are you having so much success with this? And so I just started teaching people for free. But as COVID persisted, I realized, I can't keep teaching people for free. Like we got to start making some money on this, right? And also, like, people wouldn't take it seriously. Like if you teach somebody for free, they wouldn't.
It's true. They have to have skin in the game, and it's usually dollars and time.
Exactly. And so I'd be sitting there teaching them and telling them exactly what to do, and they wouldn't take action. And so enter Dean Graziosi and Tony Robbins with the World Summit, right? So we did their World Summit and joined Project Next. They taught us how to make a course. We made this course. We launched the course. And then right after we launched, somebody approached me and she said, I don't want to do the course, but I want to become an Amazon bestseller. Will you help me? And I said, sure. And so what we did is, here's my first client. And we got her to an Amazon bestseller in 11 categories in 4 different countries, which was
wow,
a huge success. And we got her to like the sub, 1,000 level on Amazon. Like we just nailed it. We knocked it out of the park. And it was so good. And then we had other clients saying, well, will you help me publish my book? And I kept, these people, they kept coming to me, and they kept, I found out they were going to these vanity publishers where you'll pay people, like $5,000 to, I don't know, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 to get your book published. And you end up with a okay looking book, but they don't build the assets around it, and you don't have the knowledge to go with it. So I invented something called an educational publishing company, where we actually walk you step by step through the entire publishing process. And we also build assets around your book, like Facebook pages, landing pages, things like this so that your book has a better chance of competing, right? So it's not just a book by itself, it has an ecosystem around it. And anyway, so yeah, so I like we started doing this, and then lo and behold, people take notice when you're kicking butt. Dean and Tony's team noticed that we were kicking butt, and they gave us a shout out at the World Summit in front of 800,000 people. Like, Dean Graziosi said my name on stage in front of 800,000 people. And
You
then
can't you can't pay enough for that.
yeah, I know. Like that was just like, and he did it more than once. So it was super cool. So like, here we are, we're doing great. And then I got too big too quickly, and my business imploded. I didn't have systems or people in place, and my wife felt called. We have this thing: if one of us feels called to do something, we're going to support the other one 110%, even if it
Yep.
doesn't make sense. And so, even though our business was doing great, she got called to go be the director of the volunteer organization that helped change her life. And I said, okay. And even though it had a negative effect on our business at the time, it forced me to actually start working with a team and start developing employees and, really going through and doing that. So in the long run, it ended up helping us coming through it. Yeah. And so that's a little bit about us and our story. And
Holy crap! I mean, how you started that that journey, like you actually took the pilgrimage
yeah,
you built your book out of what you were watching and seeing. That's a cool story, and I learned a lot like I didn't know. But I wanna kind of land on one of these things that you just talked about.
sure.
The audience are entrepreneurs and business owners, right? And they have that visionary seat, right? And they go towards the sales piece.
Yeah.
Um, and what you just said about getting big, going fast, and not having the structure in place, the processes, the SOPs, all those things in place.
Hmm.
Like, and I've worked with your team,
Yeah.
so I understand that, like, they each have a role and they know what their role is and they're really, really good at their role. And they were more than willing to do something that was a little bit outside, to help me, with the editing component of
Oh
it.
yeah. Yeah.
Um, did it super fast and really, really well. Um, so, like, talk a little bit about how you went about creating that system and finding people to that you could rely on. And I mean, when I say you built a team, like, how the hell did you do that? Because
Yeah.
you got to.
That's a good question. I'm still working on. I'm not perfect by any means, but like what I found was I was looking for people that bought into my vision. Number one, I looked for people who had love, right? So they loved books, they loved publishing, they wanted to get involved with it, and so like that was my number one thing is that they had a passion for books and a passion for helping people, and so that fit right into my thing. And they also like I look at like each person I do a book for, I help them. Like, Dean, like, ingrained it into my subconscious that sales is service, right? So if I have something that I know is going to help somebody and I'm not doing everything I can to get in front of them, I'm doing that person a disservice. And I know our system's great. I know we're better than, like pretty much, we're a darn good company, and we deliver. And so, like I think if I'm not doing everything to get in front of them, I'm doing a disservice. And having my team buy into the we're helping people, because we're changing lives. Like I've had people cry. I've had people say I've been having this dream for 10 years and nobody's been able to help me. I've had people say I got scammed for like X amount of money and you were able to do it for so much, more cost effective, and I learned so much more as I was going through it. Like we are literally helping people. And so I look for people that wanted to help people. The other thing that really helped too was with working with interns. And so my right hand woman, Michael, who you met, she started off as an intern for me. And so she started interning, and then gradually I was like, I got to start paying you. And then I paid her more and more and more, and then like until
Sure.
she's like sitting in my integrator role at the moment, and she formats for us, and she's learned all of these skills and has become pretty much invaluable to the company coming through it. And then our publishing specialist, uh, like she started off in film, and then the film strike happened, and she lost all of her income. But she loved editing. She loved, books. And I said, hey, why don't you just come join us? And so she joined us. So I was able to poach from there too. But I think it's finding people who have a passion for what you're doing and a passion for helping people who are really bought into your vision. Skills can be trained, right? Depending on like what they are, you can train skills, but you can't train that passion and desire and need kind of coming in there.
I mean, you gave, I think, a great answer. Is like they bought into your vision,
Hmm.
and you have a process where you bring people in as an intern to kind of, it's almost like a trial,
Exactly. Yeah.
right? And you get to know each other. You get to start to see how well they can adapt and adjust and fit into your space. But buying into your vision, and that they truly, because part of your vision is helping people. And
Absolutely.
I agree with Dean that, if you're not providing service, you're not providing value, then you shouldn't be in sales,
Hmm.
right? Because those are all connected. But getting them to getting them to buy into your vision, you have to articulate your vision
Yeah.
to them. And those the team are younger than way younger than me, a little
Yeah.
bit
And
younger.
younger than me as well, too.
But I mean, how do you talk a little bit about that? Being able to help them understand what that really is. Is it just a conversation? Is it like, you got a VTO that you're rolling out to, get them to buy into it? Like, how are you getting them to really understand what it really truly means? Because you're passionate about what you do,
Mhm.
and that shows through with how you do it. And getting those folks to buy into that vision, that means they're doing the same thing. Their passion is aligned. So, and this speaks to one of the issues in the book that I talk about, is getting that alignment. So, like,
Absolutely. So how do I
you're
do that? So um,
major a magic wand, or what
no,
is?
so it's the same thing with sales. It's demonstrating results, right? And so like the moment that that person sees that effect that they've had on somebody's life, it changes, right? So when we with Michael, when we got through our first client that we did together, and she saw, wow, like this person is crying, and I made this possible, that I formatted that, right? And so like that was a big thing. I think also I think it's really valuable too to I do personality tests, and then I also I love the Enneagram. We have another personality test that we use too, but I also like to look at what people's love languages are, and I try to cater to the love languages of my employees. So if somebody's love language is words, I make sure to tell them, you're doing great, you're doing awesome, like the work that you're doing is affecting people's lives, and you're doing wonderful. I'm proud of you, right? And if somebody's is gifts, then I buy them an extra cup of coffee, right? If somebody's is quality time, I make sure that we have a meeting once a week. So if you learn your employees like love languages, it really helps to do that. And then also, like if you're into the Enneagram, there's like 8
Can you
different.
explain what that means? Because I'm not sure
Yeah, so
everybody
the
follows.
Enneagram, it's one of the oldest kind of like personality things out there. Is originally developed by the Sufis, and later the Jesuits picked it up. And it's a number system, so it's 1 through 8 on these numbers, and each number has a different representation of things going through. Like 8 is the boss, like you'd be an 8, like in my opinion, right? When you're coming into it, and then you have like 4, who's the artist. You have 5, who is the sort of very intellectual, like researcher. You have 6, who's the loyalist, and you have 2, who's the helper, right? So there's all these different things. So and I think this kind of goes with going with like what's in the right seat, right? I wouldn't put like a 2 in an 8 position, right? Because they're not necessarily going to be there. And I'm not going to put a 7 who's kind of like the flighty, like loves to do a lot of different things, and the just like research all the time position. And so with this, and then like for the 2, somebody that loves to help, guess what? I'm going to put them in a position where they get to help other people, because they feel good when they're helping other people. They're being true to who they are, right? If somebody's a 6, they're a loyalist. That means that they're going to stay loyal to you, pretty much no matter what, if you get that loyalty to begin with. And so you can kind of look at this. I started really getting into Enneagram when I was developing my characters for my books, because they're fiction. So I think what type are they, or how they would act. But I see it definitely applying to business, when you're going in there, and especially like which seats to give people. Because if you find out like what's innately inside somebody, it's going to really line up with those seats that they should be in.
So what happens when somebody thinks they're an 8 and they're a 5?
Yeah.
There's like a little conflict there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I haven't gotten to that point yet because I signed right to begin with. But yeah, I guess when somebody is an 8 and a 5, like I would just really sit down with them and investigate. Do you actually like leading people? Is this something that you like doing, or would you rather just be researching? Like I see that you like to read and research. Like, is that something you'd rather be doing? Or like you just really pull out the pain point essentially that's going in there and like illustrate, okay, what do you like, what do you not like, and then be like, oh, that's because your personality is this. And I think that's another thing too. And I haven't delved it, this is all theory at this point because I haven't gotten to that point yet. But I think if you point out to somebody in their that that's what their personality type is, if they take like one of these tests and they're like, oh, my personality is more fitted to this, it's a lot easier for them to kind of have that own self discovery instead of being told by somebody else. And so that would be kind of something that'd be interesting, is if I had like an 8, like a 5 and an 8 seat who shouldn't be there. um, I would have them sit down with the Enneagram and be like, okay, which type do you think you are? And then they're like, oh, the research is like, well, would you be happier doing more of a research role when you're coming into it? Because that seems like more of what you're gravitating towards. So I don't know. I'm still working on that development.
But it probably never gets perfect, but what you're describing to me as you're communicating and working with your team, I mean, you're doing a few things that an entrepreneur does if they're doing the role well. They're coaching their people,
Oh, absolutely. Hmm.
and but it doesn't feel like they're being told what to do because you're truly coaching and you're helping them self-discover, right? In a way that's going to support the business, but also and it's probably equally as important to support themselves in doing something that they have passion for.
Totally.
And
And I love that you talk about like training, because I totally believe in that. Like I give my people, like I bought them all the Russell Brunson books. I send them courses. I will teach them anything that I know that I'm doing. And then I see, this is another thing that I also ask along the way. I do check-ins with them and I say, hey, are you still enjoying this? Is this something you still want to be doing? If they say no, I'll give it to somebody else or I'll do it myself and come through there, because I want to keep them happy and I want to keep them loyal and I want to keep them there because they're damn good. Like I want to keep them as long as possible. Then
they
the other
are.
thing, the other thing with that too is the learning styles. So I was a master teacher, right? I got flown around to teach. So one of the reasons why I wasn't the best in the world at dancing, but I was damn good at teaching. I mean, I was damn good at dancing too, but like, but teaching. But it was because I would try to hit each of the learning styles when I was teaching. And so you have visual, kinesthetic, auditory, and then I would call it theoretical, was like another one. And so when I'm teaching somebody, like some people like to be shown exactly what to do or told exactly what to do or whatever. Some people, you have to, they're kinesthetic learners. So they have to do it by going through it themselves. And that's kind of what I'm going right now.
Trial and error, and figure it out and fail, and but they have to
Exactly.
be okay with failing, and they have to know it's okay by from you as the leader, that
Hmm.
it is okay to fail, and that
Yep.
I make more mistakes than anybody else. So if you want to learn this way, you got to get comfortable with, yeah, that didn't work out as well as I thought. And there's a tool, or not a tool, but it's more of a concept I use. What did we do well in
Hmm.
this? And pick a situation. What did we do well, right? And like where could we do a little bit better? Like what aspect of that, if we just did a little bit better, would make this easier? And then is there anything that we need to do differently
Hmm.
that would make this whole outcome closer to what we were trying to accomplish? And it to me, those questions like open things up for them to like think about it. And they have to be delivered in a empathetic way, and they have to believe that there's trust in place, that
Yeah.
they can give a straight answer. But it it's it all starts with that. that vision piece and making sure that they really are on board with what you're what you've envisioned. And then if they are, then you can do this little dance. So, not to make a reference to your previous life, but
Totally.
I mean, it is a bit of a dance,
Oh, it totally is.
and it can be elegant, and it can be stepping on each other's toes from time to time, but
Mhm.
it's going to be both. So I think that's a really good lesson for the entrepreneurs out there, especially the visionaries, that if we don't have alignment with our people and aligned with our visions, we're going to struggle
It's true.
um, with people, and people are what make or break um, our growth and our ability to scale.
I
Um,
think I think one other thing that I found too is listening what's important to them. Like one of my employees, her family is really important to her. And I realized this because the first time her family was in town, she totally disappeared. And I was like, "Where are you? I need you." We're talking about younger generation, like just
yeah,
different stuff. But the moment I realized, okay, family's super important for her, she's going to drop everything instead of making it a bad thing. I say, "Hey, just tell me beforehand when you're going to be with your family. We'll arrange it so you can just take the time off and be with them." Because I'd rather have some knowing that somebody's not going to be there, so I'm not relying on them, and have them just enjoying that than having somebody not show up when I need them. So I'd rather so I flipped the table on that. I said, okay, if they're there, just take the time off, be with your family. Like that's super important to you. I get
but
that.
clue everybody else in on the team.
Exactly. So it's really about listening, like what's important to them. And then, they feel heard and they're like, okay, I feel like, oh, he sees that I value my family, you know? So
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that's some really good insights for the audience. And again, if somebody, I mean, we're going to have all your data in the show notes and how to get a hold
great.
of you. But if somebody's curious about, you know, taking a step with a book, or they have a book, it's kind of done, and they want to take a step. Like, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can go to our website, publishinghackers.com, and you can go through there or email me directly. We'll put the email in the show notes or Linktree. There's a lot of different things. We also just launched a podcast too called You Don't Need a Publisher, which is great. It's contrarian, but it's like
Yeah.
awesome. Really, my ultimate goal is to take down the publishing industry. Not necessarily like the big guys, but like all the vanity publishers who are taking advantage of other people. I want to take them out.
And
Uh,
there's a lot of that going on. I know we don't want to get in there, and
yeah.
but people need to be careful. Um, there's lots of folks out there, just like in any business.
Hmm.
It doesn't matter. Like in my business, there's people that will just sell somebody training because they asked for it when it's really not. It's a complete waste of money and
Yeah.
resources. So you have bad actors everywhere. Um, so they can reach out to you through your email and through the website. We'll
And
have all that.
Facebook is usually the best. Publishing Hackers Facebook. You can reach us there. Yeah, we're all over the place. Just try to find us, Publishing Hackers.
Awesome. Um, Last question then, Brian. I kind of know you're not a cigar guy, but
Yeah.
any kind of relationship with cigars?
Absolutely, yeah. So I've been thinking about this. So I have two actually. Number one is I had so my grandfather's old school Italian straight over, and he had a neighbor that used to smoke cigars with this dog, and so I always think about that as well. The story you were telling me earlier kind of reminded me about that. So good childhood memories with that. But like the main thing was I do love the smell of cigars, and like walking into that humidor and just kind of like that smell. And so what I did when I was younger is I actually took a cigar box and I put all of my checks back when we used to use checks inside the cigar box. So every check that I would send for rent or whatever, they'd always have that smell. And I think kind of cigars are kind of the smell of wealth sometimes, coming into it. And so like all of my checks would have that like distinct cigar smell to them.
You get commentary on that from people
I
that
don't
they
know. It was years ago. I don't even remember anymore. But I kind of wish I had another cigar box to put things in because I do
oh,
like that smell.
maybe I'll send you one.
Hey, there you go.
I once printed off some stuff. I was doing a workshop, and there's like 30 people at a client's office, and I was handing out the worksheets that went with the workshop. And
Mhm.
first guy I handed it to, I was like, just pass this around. And he took the pack of papers and like put it to his face. And I started to walk away from him. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? He's like, it smells like cigars.
Awesome.
And I'm like, is that a problem? He goes, yeah, I don't really like cigars. I'm like, okay, then just pass them down.
That's
And
funny.
then the guys that owned the company were laughing because they were cigar guys,
Yeah.
and so they were sort of explaining, my setup, and it
Yeah.
was just kind of funny. That's a good story with the. I'll get you a cigar box that
There you
will.
go. If you got any
Short,
yellow ones, that would be nice.
I'll take
No,
a
I'm
look.
just joking. Just joking.
All right, man. I truly appreciate it. I appreciate all the help you've provided me, and the help you're going to provide me,
Yeah.
for the next round of this. So thank you, and
You're welcome.
we'll be talking soon.
Great talking to you today, Walter. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. You can become publishing hackers too. I know everybody has a book inside them, and we'd love to help you get them out into the world.
There you go. I think that's absolutely true. I didn't think I had a book in me, but maybe I got three.